In this lesson, we're going to discuss cost. Now, the cost of something is the amount of money that's spent on a particular activity or a particular resource. While cost is usually expressed financially, it can also be expressed in non-financial ways too. For example, when we create a new course here, we actually measure the cost of the course in the number of hours spent creating it. A typical course like this one might require 400 or 500 hours worth of effort across our entire staff. This usually is described in either the measurement of man-hours or FTEs. Man-hours are also known as person-hours because we want to be equal opportunist here. FTEs, on the other hand, stands for full-time equivalent, and it's used to measure things based on a single employee who works 40 hours per week for an entire year. This equates to roughly 2,000 hours worth of work. So if we need to run a web server to host all of our courses, that might require half of an FTE, or 1/2 of a person's annual available work hours for the entire year. This describes the number of FTEs, or full-time equivalent employees, that are required in order to undertake a particular activity. Now, while I like to measure things from an hours of effort perspective, this does ultimately translate back to financial cost. Each team member on my team earns a salary, and if it takes somebody half of their entire year to run that web server, that means half of their salary is tied up in keeping that web server up and running. So it does end up going back to cost eventually. But when we look at our reports, we're actually more concerned with the amount of time things take than the amount of money we spend on them. Now, depending on your organization, you may choose to measure things based on the man-hours, the person-hours, the FTEs, or using actual dollars and cents that are expended. Either way, the service provider is aiming to reduce or remove costs when they provide a service. So if a service provider can save you more money than their service is going to cost you, you're certainly going to look at using that service, right? I know I would. For example, my internet service provider has varying speeds available that we could choose to use here at our office. We could choose to spend $50 per month for a 100 megabit per second connection, or $100 per month for a 1,000 megabit per second connection. Which one should we choose? Well, in our case, we upload a lot of large files because of all the videos that we produce. And when we looked at the speed that we were going to purchase, we decided that paying twice as much money per month for a 10 times increase in speed was well worth it, because it saves our staff a lot of time uploading those files. So it became an easy decision, because spending $50 more per month on the faster internet connection made my staff much more productive, and it saves us a lot of wasted labor hours. And this more than made up for the additional cost in the labor savings that we were able to get. That's the idea when you look at cost. If you're going to outsource a service or you're going to pay for something, you want to make sure it's giving you more value than what it's costing you. In our case, spending twice as much on internet gave us 10 times more value, and so it was definitely worth doing.